and gentlemen, let's move on to this pre-lunch session. Let me call upon C.A. Satish Kumar, our past president, to chair and monitor the session.
A very good afternoon to you. The second technical session is very interesting because it is about a country in the next what it is going to happen in the next 25 years, say 2047, and how we are going to be in the 100 years of its existence since 1947. We all know there is already a downtrend. It is in the economy, global, across. But in spite of all these things, we are moving ahead. Our country is moving ahead. And so to say, we are an exception and a bright spot in the global economy. And the latest IMF projections during these years say we are the fastest growing economy in the world. And we have, when our Prime Minister spoke something about digital economy some 8 years back, we thought that will never happen. But the COVID has changed all equations. And now we see we are the fastest growing digital economy, and we can say we are the best and the first across the world. And the kind of digital transactions happening in our country is uncomparable. So to say, that is where we compare our performance with the US, we are much ahead in terms of the transactions which is handled digitally. I'm not going to make a big speech on this, but we have an excellent speaker, Mr. Rajesh Nair, who is heading Ernst in Kerala, and he has been with us for one or two annual management conventions before. And as a matter of convention, I have to introduce him. Mr. Rajesh Nair is a national BD leader and climate change and sustainability services CSR and the business head of Ernst LLP. And he is an engineer by profession, and he started his career with Tata Motors, where he has been adjudged as a best engineering trainee award from the Tata Motors. Then during his 25 years of his management consulting experience, almost half of it, I can say about 14 years, he has been with Ernst & Young. And he currently heads the Cochin office and leads all service lines of Ernst & Young in Kerala. He additionally leads the financial service sector practice in South India. And from 1st July 2022, Rajesh leads ESG, climate change and sustainable services practices nationally for Ernst & Young. And he has been a regular speaker in most of the management forums, and he has been served in the state planning board in the Kerala Committee for Entrepreneurship from 2014 to 16. Rajesh was on the Chief Minister's high-powered IT Committee of Kerala government, focusing on the promotion of the industry and investment in Kerala from 2017, and he's still on that. He is currently on the board of the Kerala Startup Mission. He was a past president of Thai Kerala chapter. He reads and writes in the spare time, including business columns. You must have read his business columns in many of the newspapers. And the Kerala Management Association in 2013 has conferred the Best Manager Award to Mr. Rajesh Nair. With this very brief introduction, I welcome Rajesh, and we have almost about 40-45 minutes time, and handing over to Rajesh.
Let's welcome Shri Rajesh Nair, Head Ernst and Young Business Kerala Circle, for his presentation. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you for the, it was not a brief presentation, it was a very long presentation, but thank you. At times it is embarrassing to hear hear an introduction and you don't know what expression to have on your face. So I was going through that pangs right out there. I have a presentation, and I must mention, so I came here first for an annual convention in, I think, 2012. This was, I think the convention was in Taj, it was in Taj Gateway at that point of time, and very well attended, something like this, and lots of students, etc. Very interesting forum. EY was 10 people in Kerala at that time. We had just started operations. So today I stand here, we are a little more than 10,000 people between Trivandrum and Kochi. We also have an office space here in the UL Cyber Park, which we are still, we are still pondering in terms of expanding it, or because some of our folks who are in our global delivery services are still working from home. So as soon as they come back to office, we will have the Calicut office functional as well. So I must mention this, which is not part of the presentation. We opened an office in Calicut, thinking, because when we did a demographic survey, there were a lot of our young chartered accountants and young MBAs were from Calicut. So we thought that when we open an office in Calicut, a lot of them would opt for a transfer and would want to. Very surprisingly, we didn't have any applications for people to move to Calicut, and these are all people from Calicut, and the applications that we got from people were people from, let's say, Trivandrum or Kollam and Kochi, who were looking at a Calicut. So, we found it very strange, so I asked a lot of Calicut, some of these kids from Calicut, and they keep saying that, hey, Adisheriya, we don't want to stay with parents. We don't want to stay, we want to live separately and all that. So that largely sums up, the nature of this generation, where probably when I was that age, every vacation was about going home to my parents wherever I was. But then today's generation, they have independent views on holidays and the way they stay, etc. Having said that, I want to present this. This is a presentation which I have made a couple of times now. This was a report which EY published at the World Economic Forum in January. And this was, in India, we had published it along with CNBC. So you would see a lot of CNBC interviews of some of the business heads in India talking about this vision. This report is freely available on the net. For those of you who want to read the full report, I can send you. Otherwise, you can just Google the EY India at 100 report. You will get this entire report. It has a lot of very interesting numbers. Some of these numbers are counterintuitive. So, when we think about, especially Indians, when we think about, our abilities and our vision, we tend to be a lot more conservative, and we tend to hold back ourselves. And so even today, in spite of all the progress, we are still questioning the Prime Minister's 5 trillion vision. And I want to, the format of the presentation is, it's like a movie where I'm showing you the final scenes in the beginning. I want to start off by showing you the broad picture of what India could be when it is 100 years old, which means 2047, when some of you sitting at the back, especially some of you students would be at the prime of your career and heading institutions and would be CXOs in various organizations. So this report is about the possibilities of what India could be in 2047. I'll show you some snippets of the end vision, and then we will roll back, and it's like watching a movie where you see the hero and heroine getting married and everybody living happily ever after in the beginning, and then we go back and we see the flashback of what are those things which should happen for this to happen. And I must say that I'm extremely optimistic looking at these numbers. A lot of these numbers we have done it as research from the Kerala office. So we had a team which was sitting in Trivandrum, which was sitting in Kochi, and then of course we had the other teams in Bangalore and Gurgaon also helping in. So that's the report I have. So the magic number I want to leave you on the first slide is we could be a 26 trillion economy when it comes to 2047. And what does that mean? It means that we have passed that conversation of when will we be a 5 trillion economy, or is 5 trillion possible? We are saying that those questions are over. The progress that we have seen, in spite of the deceleration during the COVID period, we are still positive that we will do much more in the coming years. And what I have in the further slides is about the justification on how we can reach there. So these are again some broad headlines which you should keep in your mind. We could be a $26 trillion economy in 2047. The magic number is India, the per capita income in India could be around $15,000 US in 2047. Just to give you an idea as a comparative figure, the comparative figure in India today, the per capita income in India today is around $2,000. That's the per capita that we have in India. But we are saying that there could be a huge jump in that. And that jump, while I will give you the reasons, one of the reasons for that jump is the large demographic dividend that we have. The reason why we are exponentially excited about the demographic dividend that we have is we'll have a working population much higher than the rest of the world. And we are saying that 25% of world's talent will come from India in the next, and for that you don't need to wait 25 years, but for the next, let's say 10 years, you would see that 25% of people working across the world will be Indians, or would have been from this country. So which also means in this audience, if we have, let's say 75 students sitting out here, close to 60 of you will be working abroad very soon. So that will be the nature. Your careers will not be restricted to just India. All of you will have opportunities to work abroad because that's the kind of talent opportunities that we have. And in the medium term, there is no question, and I don't think even the worst critics of India are doubting the fact that we will be the fastest growing nation in the medium term. When I say medium term, I mean around 5 to 8 years. So that's the time, and this is when some of those other countries could also catch up over a period of time. But immediately for the 5 to 8 years, we are around the 5th largest economy now, but we are likely to beat Japan and probably Germany as well very soon. And we could move into becoming the 3rd largest economy in the world behind the US and China very soon. So these are some figures. I'm not going to read out each of these lines and each of the slides. These are for you to go through. For those of you, as I said, who are interested, you could go through the entire report. It has some fascinating numbers, and all these numbers we have crunched from the latest economics indices. The Prime Minister chose to call the next 25 years as Amrit Kal, and that's the reason you're seeing a lot of Amrit Kal advertisements and vision statements, which is brought out by Niti Aayog and several of the central ministries. And some very interesting points is we will be the largest country in terms of population. and we'll be the largest contributor to the world workforce in this decade. That will not take too much long. And the number is, as I said, it's around 25%. So 25% of all people working across the globe will be Indians. That's the kind of opportunity that we are looking at. The growth projections that India economy has is by far the highest. So if you look at the websites for what the US is predicting for itself, what China is predicting for itself, or even some of the smaller fast-growing nations in Africa, etc. Africa, there's a lot of action happening in Africa as a continent also. So there are lots of countries with very low base. So they could also be growing at very large paces, but still, we'll be amongst the real fast growers across the world. There are some 8 enablers, and while I touch on some of these enablers, some of these enablers are quite intuitive. At the end of some of these slides, I'll also talk about what it means for Kerala. Because all these enablers are not true for Kerala, because we are slightly different from the rest of India. Our demographic dividend is very different from the rest of India. Our older population, etc., we are more aligned to, let's say, some of the developed nations where we have a significant number of people above 60. So if you look at even district-wise in Kerala, you will have districts where senior citizens are nearly more than the younger folks. Like, for example, if you look at the town of Tiruvalla, etc., some of these places, in most of the houses you're not seeing youngsters, because most of these youngsters are working abroad or working in other cities in Kerala. So some of these are not true for Kerala. So I'll touch upon Kerala towards the end as well. So one is, we'll be the world's information technology hub. There is no doubt about that. Most of the software services, people who are working on software services are coming from India. We are not there in terms of large product companies, but we are slowly going out there. So we'll see people, creating software products from India as well. Digitization will be a large force multiplier. Kerala is a classic example of, we missed the desktop revolution, as they say. Or, we moved directly to mobile commerce much faster than a lot of other states in India. And, as Debashish said earlier, our digitization has become like biology now. It's no more technology, it's biology, because it's part of our body. The telephone is now called the 79th organ in the body. You have 78 organs, and the telephone is the 79th organ in your body. And we have really learned how to use it, and it's largely because of the younger population. And you would be surprised, even the older population in Kerala, their ability to have use some of these devices is much higher than the rest of India. Filling the credit gap. I have a slide on the credit gap, but essentially this means that we have always been a saving economy. So I think culturally also we've always tried to save money, and whatever investments we make have been from the savings that we have had. So even if you look at some of these Hindi sayings, of the past, all good families want to save money. And what do Indians save for? Indians primarily save for weddings, they save for healthcare, and they save for education. Travel, entertainment, fashion, all these things was totally, were things which we never thought of earlier, but that's changing today. And it's when some of these areas come into your daily expenses that you will see a larger credit. So there is a possibility of credit growing much, much higher in India compared to the rest of the world. Thriving entrepreneurship. I think we've talked enough. We had Thomas mentioning about entrepreneurship in the morning as well. Entrepreneurship, or creating jobs and being a job creator, seems to be one of those things that we have really caught on. It's also because we, as an economy, we are what people call as a small and medium economy. There are lots of these small scale enterprises which are really thriving in India. So which means there is an opportunity for you to move in. I am part of the Kerala Startup Mission Governing Board, so I see the entire excitement in the startup mission and the number of startups which are coming in. And you would be very pleased to know that the rate of failure in India or in Kerala for that matter is much lower than the rest of the world. So when somebody says that 1 out of 20 startups are becoming successful, this is not a Kerala figure or this is not an India figure. Here it is more like 2 to 3 startups in every 10 are doing okay. Of course, all of them may not become large, they may not become a Microsoft or they may not become an Amazon, but they'll do well, they'll create jobs, they'll create wealth for families which are attached to them. So there is a lot of positivity which is happening in entrepreneurship across. Then reaping on the demographic dividend. Again, I say this with a little bit of caution because this is not an economics figure which we see in Kerala, because of the sort of healthcare investments Kerala has made in the past, our life longevity is much higher than the rest of India. We don't, infant mortality and, those kind of medical calamities were not there in Kerala. It's not like, just the last 10 years, but it's not been there in Kerala even for the last 50 years. When I say it's not been there, I mean the percentage is much lower than the averages of the country. Making domestic manufacturing competitive, there is an option for this. For those of you who think that manufacturing is not possible in Kerala, there is a very interesting book which one of our colleagues in TAI have brought out, Mr. Balagopal. It's called Below the Radar, and he profiles 50 manufacturing companies in Kerala and how they are doing exceedingly well. And there is a brand of particular kind of high technology, less land and capital intensive projects which are doing very well in Kerala. I'll touch upon that when I talk about manufacturing. And building the infrastructure for the future. Today as we speak, the Prime Minister is inaugurating the Bangalore-Mysore road, and once it becomes functional, I had one of the participants here telling me that he actually traveled from Bangalore to Kozhikode yesterday in less than 6 hours by road. So that's the kind of possibilities which we have when some of these big highways come in. And because we were slightly slow in infrastructure building in the past, there is a lot of option of infrastructure to be created. And the last one is the sustainable energy. We are still in baby steps out here. We have not really harvested solar the way we want. We've not harvested wind energy or some of these other energy sources the way we want. So the potential is much, much higher. So Amritkal, these are the indices which the Prime Minister is very confident about, and this is the report which Niti Aayog has brought out. So these are some things which are current strengths which we will focus on. Large, high services exports. We are not there in terms of product exports, but services exports we are really one of those large ecosystems. Renewable energy, a large working age population. You would have heard different kinds of figures, right? Close to 50% of India's population today is around less than 30 years old. So that's the kind of workforce that we will have, and we will not be just giving workforce for India, but we'll also be giving workforce for across the country. The startup ecosystem, what's happening in Kerala, it's happening across India as well. The rough number of startups which are there in India today is around 90,000. It's around 90,000 startups. Kerala is inching towards 4,000 startups. Still, the startups are much larger in the bigger cities like a Bangalore, a Bombay, and a Delhi. But we are catching up, and we are, compared to our population and compared to our ecosystem, we have a high percentage of startups here, and I'm sure I see some faces who would be startup entrepreneurs out here in this gathering as well. I'm not touching upon all of these, but yeah, I'll touch upon the IT story. So in IT, it's not just the Indian IT companies. Now, I don't need to tell you that. I don't need to repeat Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai and etc. etc. The leaders of some of the large organizations running technology across the world are Indians. And we can't really call them Indians because they've taken up citizenships of those respective countries, but they come from Indian origin. So it's also because of the talent play out here. I mean, some of them, like a Sundar Pichai or a Satya, have done their schooling and college in India, and of course have pursued citizenships because they've been in those countries for a very long time. And because there are success stories like those, US, UK, most parts of Europe are anyway coming, but then there, even the lesser known countries in Europe are also looking at, are looking at India to come and pick up people and to have Indian software engineers there. A lot of service providers in India are providing back office support to a lot of these East European countries. And again, it's not just all the, there is South America, there is North America was always there, US was always there, but we are really spreading across. There is a fairly large number of software Indian engineers working in Africa. So IT is a big story. And the larger part of IT which we tend to neglect is a lot of our women workforce. I mean, women participation in the workforce is still not enough, but a lot of women have been able to get into the workforce because of IT, because of the nature of work. The nature of work, allowed them to work from home. So even if you look at EY today, we offer flexi timings to a lot of our women employees. It's not just in Kerala, but across India and across the world. And likewise, a lot of other large consulting companies have always, also been able to give those kind of timings. And so IT itself has been the reason why so many women could come into the workforce in India in the last 15-20 years. The global capability centers, as the 10,000 people I mentioned in Kerala, they are not all working for clients in Kerala. There is of course a large number of people in my immediate team who work for clients in Kerala, but most of them are working for projects across. So you could be sitting in Trivandrum and you could be doing a project in, let's say, Budapest, working with the Hungarian government, or you could be working on a project in Canada on some transatlantic courier company, or etc. So a lot of companies are also coming in and setting up what they call as global capability centers in India. So if you look at Bangalore is a hub for global capability centers. Recently we have some of the Middle East groups also coming and setting up their back offices or global. Back offices was the popular lingo for these global capability centers, but I don't want to call them back offices because a lot of them are handling strategic functions. So it's not like these are the companies which are just handling some support services like payroll and some lower value chain process in HR and all that. No, they are handling strategic HR. They are handling a lot of these companies are handling their sustainability and all their energy counting processes from India, and some very significant product development also is getting done. And so the entire segment called GCC is also really taking off in India. Digitizing India, I don't need to say that all of us are into the digital bandwagon. The India stack, as we call it, it started with Nandan Nilekani's, tryst with Aadhaar. Now there is Aadhaar. After Aadhaar, you had UPI, and all of you are, so you can go to a Murkangada right at this junction where you enter IIM, and you can buy, a glass of lemon water, and he will give you a code to scan for a Paytm or a Google or a GPay number. And you literally are moving, and we are, as a nation, we are moving much faster into a cashless economy than even the more prominent economies like the US, etc. So that's the sort of opportunity which we have. So the India stack has that, and now I don't know how many of you have heard of ONDC. ONDC will provide mobile platforms and commerce platforms for even the very small businesses who can't afford one. So the entire ONDC play, of course, it's just started, and Koshi, who heads ONDC, retired from EY and joined ONDC as the CEO. Koshi says the opportunity is very large. So, it's not just the small kirana stores which will benefit, but any kind of store, the mom and pop store which makes cakes or pastries or whatever, everybody can have some sort of a commerce link using the ONDC platforms. So that's the benefit and that's the potential there. Again, digitizing India, I mentioned. Now the credit gap is what I mentioned earlier. I want to sort of substantiate that further. If you look at rough numbers, on an average, if you're earning 100 rupees a month, the credit that we were taking based on that 100 rupees was around 60 rupees. So we were not really taking credit to what we were earning. So our entire affinity towards credit is much lesser. So we would take credit just to buy a house or a car, or maybe if there is a family function, like the earlier three things which I mentioned. We spend money on weddings, education, or healthcare. So those were the only things that we took credit on. But moving our lifestyles, etc., we never looked at it from a credit standpoint. There is a whole universe which is sort of coming up there. So if I compare the 60 rupees of credit which a family which earns 100 is taking, if you look at the US figures, it's close to 165 rupees. So a US family which is earning 100 rupees is actually on credit for 165 rupees. Now you may debate that, no, that's not the right model, or you may say that, but that's not my parents have taught me, and that's not my grandfather has taught me, and that's not jurisprudence, as they say, debt is bad and credit is bad. But it shows the potential of an economy, and it shows the reason why nearly all our banks are doing substantially well. So compared to, let's say, a SVB, a Silicon Valley Bank breaking up in the US, etc., we don't have those kind of problems. It's also because our credit levels are very different, and the whole set of different reasons there. But the potential for credit is also very high. So tomorrow, a lot of people may decide to live a better lifestyle. A lot of people, and the family income will increase because of the younger population. So if it's just the father earning in some families today, 5 years down the line, 2 of the children are also likely to join the workforce, and that 100 rupees will become 300 rupees or 400 rupees or 500 rupees. So that's the potential which is there, and because of which financial sector will see significant boom. The reason why we want banks to do well is when banks do well, there is cheaper credit available for other sectors. So they will be able to pass on this credit which you take. That benefit they'll be able to pass on to, let's say, things like agriculture, things like infrastructure development, and a lot of others. And you know the entire CSR gamut as well. 2% of your profits, you're now putting it into CSR and corporate social responsibility. Companies which are doing progressively well will start putting that money into good use for bringing in inclusion and bringing more and more people into middle class, and creating a large pool of people who could live better lives, and we could raise the country as a whole in terms of opportunity. Yeah, I mentioned about the bank credits. Entrepreneurship, as I said earlier, when we opened office in Kerala in 2010, 2011, at that point of time, entrepreneurship was, it's not a fashionable word in Kerala. It was not. I mean, today, if I say that if a youngster says that I want to start a company, it's not as, it's not seen with a lot of stigma. And I've given the same example 10 years back. We had a student who did a project on comparing various social forums with the mindsets of Keralites. And one thing which this girl from London School of Economics, she had done this project. She had done is, if you look at the movies in Kerala in the 70s, so what were the heroes in these movies doing? All the giants, Prem Nazir, Madhu, Soman, etc. For the youngsters, probably, at least you would have seen the seen some black and white movies and televisions, etc. All the heroes in these movies used to be workers or used to be union leaders. Just recollect some of those movies. All the villains in these movies were the entrepreneurs. Without exception. What was Balanke Nair, Jose Prakash, etc. doing in these movies? They were all wearing suits and they were doing all the wrong things. No woman was safe. Everybody, that was the kind of impression, and that was the kind of impression Kerala had about entrepreneurs. So which means people of my father's generation, unless you're from a business family, if you are getting into business, it's because you're greedy. It's because you didn't get into engineering, you didn't get into a bank, or you didn't get into medicine, or you couldn't become a college professor. If those 4 options are not there, then you either have to go to the Gulf or you have to start a company. That was the general impression. The best students were not going into entrepreneurship during those days. And of course, if you extend that analogy and look at what were the women doing, the women in most of these movies were not doing anything substantial. They were just running around the trees with the heroes, just playing a complete side role without too much of attention. In most cases, they would be the entrepreneur's daughter who would eventually, leave all the wealth and go and live with the worker husband. And probably in some movies, they would help the husband kill the entrepreneur father as well, because entrepreneurship in those days represented a lot of negative factors. But that's changed. So today, some of the best students from some of the best engineering colleges in Kerala are saying that we'll do a startup. Or even if they don't do it immediately, 5 years they work and they're saying that, why don't I try to start a company of my own? So it's not like an option which somebody does when he doesn't have options. This is like the first option of somebody who wants to do really well and, well for himself in his career. And they see job creation as the way forward. The demographic dividend, again, I keep saying this with a little bit of caution. Kerala is not going to see this the way the rest of India is going to benefit from this. We will see a much lesser, of course we will benefit, but not as much as the rest of India. The rest of India, especially the North Indian states, for all the wrong reasons, the population is very young. And it's because, healthcare was not as advanced in those places like Kerala. The Kerala government has also unduly spent money in education and healthcare, which probably at times, if you look at the exchequer and if you point fingers at the government and say that why is the government of Kerala taking debt, just hang on and look at what the government has been doing all these many years. We have spent far more money in education and far more money in healthcare than any of these states. If you look at per capita expenses. So it's not like, and I'm not speaking for the government here, or I'm not a member of the Communist Party, but you can't blame the government for where it is today, because there are certain priorities which was seen as priorities by the government in the past. So if we have debt, it's because we spend a lot more money on education, and we wanted to upgrade the human development indices. As you would have heard that Kerala has the highest HDI. And in your mind, you must be thinking that, so what? So we hear it on a regular basis that Kerala has high HDI. Let me tell you, and some back of the envelope calculation. Gujarat, one of the largest and fastest growing countries in states in India, will take 10 years to reach the HDI levels of Kerala. That's the sort of social indices we are, and we are far ahead of a lot of other states. So the demographic dividend we may not have, but India as a whole will definitely have a lot of that demographic dividend. Women participation, I think the women participation, while it is improving, it's still very, very low. We still have, culturally, especially outside Kerala, culturally, old elder care and child care, both these are still the responsibility of the women for some reason. That's changing. I mean, I come from families where my sisters are working, my wife is working, and nearly every woman around me is working. So I don't really understand the psyche, but this psyche is changing across. So if you look at most of the employees that we have in Kerala, whenever they are getting married, their wife is working. And they make those adjustments. If somebody is working on a project outside, they try to help out, childcare, all those things. The same maternity leaves, we try to give paternity leaves now. If somebody is not well at home, it's not always the women who takes a break. We also encourage the boys to take break and look after their parents as well. So all those cultural things will happen, but still women participation is still not where it should be. Reduction in poverty levels. Again, basic poverty, you and me in Kerala, we have not seen poverty. We don't know what hunger means. We don't know what sleeping without meals means. But there are families and there is still a little bit of poverty here and there, but we have not seen it the way some of the others have seen it. Even during the COVID and, that people walking towards their respective home states, etc., we have not seen all that in Kerala. But those are some real life issues out here, and it's necessary to bring them all up to a particular level. So inclusion is very necessary. Domestic manufacturing. Now, after this Make in India process started, people were manufacturing from the past itself. Kerala, it's been quite slow. You have heard of the unionization and the processes of, let's say, the 60s and 70s, etc. But that's changing. There is a kind of industry which can thrive in Kerala as well, and I'll give you some examples. There is a company called Thermo Penpal in Trivandrum. Thermo Penpal in Trivandrum has the single largest blood bag manufacturing facility in the world. They make high quality blood bags, which is made in clean environment, and this factory sits in a place called Vilappil Shala, which is next to the entire wasteland which is there in Trivandrum, and it is a clean environment factory. A clean environment factory means you wear those space suits and all that, and and go inside, and the amount of dust which is there is literally zero. That's one company. There is a company called Kitex in Ernakulam, which has the largest single location textile manufacturing facility, which has 100%. Of course, it's 100% exported. So that facility, it's there in Kerala. We have a medical equipment cluster where the largest manufacturer of lab equipment and in vitro diagnostics equipment in India is based in a place called Pattimattam off Kochi. The company is called Agape Diagnostics. We have amongst the largest manufacturer of crepe bandages, the crepe bandages which you put when you get sprains, and that factory is there in Alua. Synthite is around 40% of all global spice oils. Spice oils is called oleoresins, which is used for fragrances and flavors, is made in Koyanjeri, which is in the outskirts of Kochi. There is another company there called Plant Lipid, which has another 20-25% of the global market share, making similar spices. So all of you have heard about capsicum. So something interesting about capsicum is the chemical extract of capsicum is used in defense for things like tear gas. So if a policeman is throwing a tear gas, let's say in Russia, to a crowd, it's likely that the active ingredient in that tear gas bomb was manufactured in Kerala, in Kolanjeri. So some of those active ingredients are manufactured in Kerala, and we don't know about it. And we don't at times we don't care, we don't know about it as well. There are 5 banks in Kerala, and all of them are in that 550 to 100 kilometer radius in Thrissur and Alua. There is Federal Bank, South Indian Bank, Dhanalakshmi Bank, Catholic Syrian Bank, and now one of your, I also already see Federal. ESAF is also one of the upcoming really well-doing banks, which if you've not seen the ad, the interest rates they offer for senior citizens, etc., is by far one of the best in India. So there is a lot of success stories in Kerala as well, and a lot of these manufacturing stories also. So that remains a large story for India also. Of course, in India, other states, there is land available, so we can have a lot of projects which are related to land also. Infrastructure, again, it's just opportune that today there is a highway from Bangalore to Mysore which is being... So Mr. Gadkari has done some fantastic job in terms of the number of kilometers of roads which are getting created every day. And again, as a caveat, I'm saying that I mentioned earlier I'm not a communist member, but I'm not a BJP member as well. But the amount of infrastructure development which has happened in the last 6-7 years, especially under Mr. Gadkari's leadership, is phenomenal. Just the number of roads, etc., and the updation of some of these facilities which have come is very, very heartening. Infrastructure for the future, all these freight corridors, etc., you will hear a lot more of them in the future. The last one is sustainable energy. And sustainable energy, the reason is we have taken carbon neutrality targets for India as well. But over a period of time, we want to be sure that we are not wasting all our resources, we are not wasting all our energy troves, etc. And we are looking at alternate energy on a very serious note. And this is one of the areas which I work on a daily basis, is also to look at how companies can redefine what they are doing and look at things with what we call as a green lens. So is there something more green that they can do to create, let's say, lesser pollution and create a lot more of those sustainable advantages for the younger generation which are coming in after. So that's another quick area. This is one area which I would be slightly cautious in India, because there are certain infrastructure developments we will still have to do to achieve what the West has achieved in the energy side. So this is still a state of flux. I am hoping that we will bridge these gaps as fast as we can. But this still remains as a if I look at it as traffic lights, this still has an amber light in my mind, saying that this could be a risk going forth if we don't look at new energy resources and how we mine those. The growth curve, ease of doing business. I think if there are risks, it's this. India needs to be much, much more easier to do work from. People will come here irrespective of our ease of doing business, because there is a large consumer population out here. There is a large talent pool out here. So the question of people coming is not, there is no question. People are going to come. And when I say people, I mean countries across the world are, going to come to India. And India will be the focus for several things. There is a reason why Indian films are viewed across. And now, a movie like RRR, people, it's playing in nearly every theater in the US, and, minting money. And the reason is people are now looking more closely at India, and they want to understand India better, and they want to even understand it culturally. And that's the reason why now a lot of Indian movies will have global releases. And it just means more revenue for the country and more revenue for the people in the media industry as well. I've covered some of these. I've covered R&D as an area, like software services. R&D, we have always been weak on R&D. We have not seen large investments in R&D, which is going to change. The reason why it's going to change is people are looking at R&D as, they're not looking at large R&D facilities across the world. So if you look at R&D investments now, people are creating those small contract research labs now, rather than setting up one, 100-acre R&D lab. They are looking at more and more smaller labs, and that's when a lot of this contract manufacturing will happen. Will happen in countries like India and in places like Kerala. There is a company called Nest Technologies or SFO Technologies. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. They make multiple electronic equipments. They make what we call as white label equipments, which means a Philip or a GE buys their sonar or their ultrasound machine. They put the GE symbol, but it's actually made in by SFO in Kochi. So they are amongst the largest contract manufacturers, and they have a contract lab also for electronics. It's amongst the largest which we have. And now all of you must have heard of V-Guard. V-Guard is also actively looking at increasing their portfolio of not just kitchen, but not just electronics, but also their kitchen portfolios, etc. Education, health, we know all this. Nutshell, for the youngsters out here, this is probably the best time to be a youngster in Kerala ever since the creation of mankind. That's the kind of opportunity you have. This is probably the best time to come out of college. This is probably the best time to enter the portals of work. So if you are 22 to 20, if you are, let's say, around 23 to 30 years old today, you are blessed. This is the time of opportunity. Everyone is looking at India. You have opportunities across the board, not just in India, but abroad. This is the time you really need to smile. And guys, please smile. This is your time. This is your time, and there will not be, and I'm telling you, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, when your children come into the workforce, things will be great, etc. But it won't be as great as what it is today. It's just going to be an amazing 5 to 8 years for you. So make the best out of it. Learn the best of what you can. Be the best versions of yourself during this time, because there is a world which is awaiting you. So it's not just opportunity in Kerala. It's not just opportunity in India, but you have the entire globe opening up, and maybe we will colonize Mars or Jupiter. So maybe, some of you will work in those places and start your companies there as well. So it's just to leave you on a very, very positive note, and it's not because I'm clinically optimistic. I'm not. I'm looking at some of these numbers. For those of you who are still skeptical, please read the report and please look at some of these economic indices. Of course, we have been much more optimistic in looking at possibilities than debating negativities. Especially in Kerala, I'm a Malayali myself. We are really good at celebrating negative facts, and we are very good at it. So anything you get, it's like, I'll tell you that I have a product which has 0 defects. So somebody will come up and say that, what is the use of having a product which has 0 defects? There is no scope for improvement or whatever. So that's the nature. That's our nature. Please start celebrating and looking for some of these positive indices. And for the youngsters out here, boss, you have the roll of dice is in your favor. Just make the most of it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. We'll take just one question with the guest, considering the already delayed schedule. Anybody with a question may please arise and place the question. Let it be fast, if not furious.
There's a question, if you can give a mic out there.
Sir, nowadays there's electric vehicle manufacturing. It is the fastest growing industry nowadays, everywhere. In this field, I'm doing some business related this one. But last few years we are getting sustained orders from automobile industry. But from last few months we are getting some slowdowns in this field. So many people, lakhs of people working related to this field, and a huge volume of business also doing with this sector. And what will within few years maybe a huge
the growth path for this.
Roads will be fully occupied with electric vehicle instead of fuel engine vehicle. But what will happen just a few years after that, 10 years maybe?
So I'm also predicting. I can't see the future. So I'm also looking at numbers, and I'm looking at I'm looking at the production targets of some of these EV companies. India, see, there is already a lot of these vehicles in the road. So it's like when we introduced pollution testing in India, Kerala didn't have a problem because we don't have too many old vehicles. In North India, we have vehicles which are prepared at home. People have manufactured small engines, and they actually have modified engines at home which they use for some of these vehicles, etc. So there will always be a lag for adopting technology at one end, and since we are not there in terms of the EV options, and likewise in Kerala, people are still looking at the number of EV charge outs and charging points, etc. There will be a slight delay in implementation, and that's why today we are seeing a slight dip. I don't want to call it a dip. There is a slight dip in the manufacturing, overall targets of which some of these countries have taken. But if you look at, what the promises, let's say, lead corporates in Kerala have taken, not also to look at hydrogen, etc. It's very, it's very encouraging. So I don't think there will be a dip. Answer to your question, I don't think there will be a large dip. Yeah. In terms of adoption, etc., it will take its own, it's maybe a little time in India, but I see, we follow the global trend. So globally, EVs are really catching on. So I'm sure in India it will catch on as well. Thanks.
That is the final question. One more.
Sir, one question. Yeah, your presentation was very good. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Sir, you have ended with a very positive and optimistic note. Very rosy picture you have painted. I agree with you to a great extent. But my question is, why there is a lot of migration happening from Kerala? The youngsters are going. They don't want to stay back. If you think, okay, I really want to believe you, but at the same time, I'm skeptical about it.
No, absolutely. So we will see this. We will see people working abroad and people wanting to study abroad. Somebody was mentioning, right? Where do you want to study? I want to study abroad. I don't know which country, what course, but I just want to study abroad. It's also because of what the current generation is thinking. The current generation is watching lifestyles. It's watching programs. It's watching social media content. It's watching OTT platforms of across the world. So I can't blame my daughter if she watches, there is a program called Euphoria. I don't know how many of the younger generation watch Euphoria. It's very, it's very trendy amongst the 12th standard and, the younger college kids. If they see something like that and aspire to live abroad, I don't really, I can't blame them. Education, yes, even today, a lot of us, we would prefer our child doing MBA in some unknown college in Ukraine than sending them to IIM Kozhikode, because there is a social status attached to, and that's the way we think as well. There is a social status attached to, Mohan Evadea, he's in Eastern Europe, etc., etc. And that was there for the Gulf as well earlier. It was lack of options earlier. I think it's not lack of options today, but it's the lack of it's about the kind of aspirations that they have. So today, since they are consuming a lot of global content, they want to be in places where such things, such things are possible. And and we see in EY, the 10,000 people that we got are not just 10,000 Malayalis who were sitting at home in Kottayam and in Trivandrum. A lot of them are qualified professionals who were working abroad and who wanted to come back, and they saw an option opening up in Trivandrum and opening up in Kochi, and they came and worked with us. Likewise for a lot of others, and in Infi, or if you look at Cognizant, TCS has 18,000 people in Kerala. So forget our 10,000. So Cognizant has a large workforce. So all these guys are there. The more options we have in Kerala, we'll be able to stay, keep them back. But I won't be really worried if some of them want to, pursue good courses and go abroad. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for instilling optimism and confidence among us. We are getting negative messages earlier, but
Okay. Let me invite Captain K.K. Haridas, past president of CMA, to present a memento as a token of appreciation. Thank you, sir. I request the guest of honor, Sri Rajesh Nair, to take a lucky draw and select the first winner. Ladies and gentlemen, we have exciting prizes waiting for you in the form of mobile phones, smartwatches, and a lot more. Please don't go away. Okay, the first winner is Georgie Umman. Congratulations and thank you. So at the time of the lucky draw, your physical presence is very much important. If you are not present, the prize will not be distributed. So the gifts include mobile phone, smartwatches, earphones, speakers, and many more. So please don't go away. Wait till the valedictory session. The prize and the gifts will be distributed only if you are present. Now let me invite C.A.C. Mohan to propose the vote of thanks to this session.
Chairman of the session, Chartered Accountant Sadish. Speaker of this session, Rajesh Nair, Captain Haridas, members from Calicut Management Association, students and friends. A good afternoon to all of you. We are fortunate to have Deputy Chatterjee here, and with his grand advice, I think we can really go ahead. He has said that IA, the difference between IA and AI. We all have IA, but we don't have AI. So if we use the AI and make AI in a positive manner, I think we can achieve great heights. And for the students, I think he has already given the advice. That is, whatever job is prevailing now may not be there, but it is going to increase by 100 or 120 or 200%. So you don't have to worry about anything. And Mr. Rajesh Nair has given a very optimistic view that the next generation is yours. So we work for that. And one more thing which I have to tell you is that the 3 points which our chief guest so told, that is clarity in our mind, then compassionate to our staff and customers, and commitment for excellence. If we have all these things, I mean, the sky is our limit. Any entrepreneur, we all are entrepreneurs over here, and chartered accountants are entrepreneurs here, and the sky is our limit. And Rajesh Nair has already told that in Kerala also it is possible. Then coming to my point of thanking our chief guest, I mean, EY, I mean, Rajesh Nair has given that EY has got more than 100 workers, staff in Kerala. Happy to note that more than 100 workers are... 10,000, I read it wrong, 10,000. And we expect that more will come in the near future. And the optimism which he has given that the Prime Minister's Amatkal, which is, I mean, if the person of that sort is working in India and with the support of persons like Rajesh Nair and all people here, we'll be able to achieve not only 5 million trillion, even 26 trillion is possible in 2047. And the optimism is good, with a good workforce of 25% in India. And we are definitely to become the 5th economy in the world in 2047. And I'm also happy to know that you are going to shift the Hollywood to Bollywood. So it's, and the students should be happy about it. And let's break for the lunch with a good note that we are going to be the fifth country in the 2047. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chartered Accountant Mohan.